Hey everyone, how y'all doing? It's good to be back. Woohoo! Happy to be here. Wearing my Philadelphia Stars shirt today, as you can see.
USFL?
World champion.
USFL.
Yes, world champion Philadelphia Stars.
Who
Herschel
was
Walker,
the coach? Who was the coach?
Jim Mora.
All right, at least he knows.
Herschel Walker. The quarterback was I want to say Chuck Fusina. Was it?
Yep, Chuck Fusina was the quarterback.
Chuck
That's
Fusina
good.
from Penn State. I was a season ticket holder to the Philadelphia Stars.
Okay.
Because it was thought it'd be fun to do, and it was glad. And they played at Franklin Field the first year, which was fun.
Wasn't Reggie? Yeah. Was Reggie White on that team?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, he was.
He was. It was crazy because Herschel Walker, it was coming towards the end of his career, but he was still killing it. And then the big
no, that was the beginning. That was the beginning.
That was the beginning of his career, right? I'm sorry, that was the beginning. And then there was another really big running back that the New York team had, who ended up being in the NFL.
I only remember Herschel Walker, and I'm trying to think.
Joe Cribbs left the Bills, but he went to Birmingham. And
Joe Cribbs was on Birmingham. He was a pretty big name.
Yep.
There was another one. Who was the?
It was
from the Lions. Billy Sims. Was Billy Sims?
Yeah. No. You know who was really the kid from Brigham Young? Doug Flutie. He was in the U.S.
Oh, he wasn't running back.
From Boston.
He was another one.
Brigham Young. He was like Boston College, I think.
The Boston Breakers, which were which still to this day have the coolest uniforms of any football team ever.
I can't remember it. All right, let's get into the meat of this
Marcus. We'll talk about this. This is not the pre-show. This is the pre-show. We'll just do
Marcus Dupree. That was the other big running back.
There you go.
Dupree, I remember him.
All right, so let's move on. We got some things to talk about pre-show for a couple minutes, then we're going to get going.
So the pre-show back in 2009, I bought 4 tickets to the final tour of Genesis. That's what I was told. I spent $340, which at the time was a lot of money on 4 seats. I was not close to the stage, so I was like, somewhere in that third level, and I enjoyed it. I bought a master CD of it, and now they're ruining all that by touring again at the age of 69 and 70. Now, I don't mind the age because I've seen John Anderson at 74 or 72 rather, still belted out. Phil's voice is not the same. And I don't care if he's sitting or standing. That doesn't matter to me. My big issue is his voice isn't the same. And then when I heard that they're not going to play anything drum intensive, then like the minute I heard that, it was like In the Cage is completely out, which is one of their best songs ever. So I probably will not see this.
Isn't his 19-year-old son playing drums?
Yeah, but he obviously can't play it like Phil. So Phil's already sort of cushioning the blow there. And if this concert is full of like throwing it all away and
Follow You, Follow Me, and Afterglow, and
and I like that stuff. That stuff's great. But if it's included with all those other things, and I don't get to hear like real meat and potatoes Genesis, I don't have interest.
This feels like a show I should see at the Borgata.
Right, it does. So
I saw Yes in Asia last year at the Borgata.
Yes.
And the fact that Genesis hasn't toured for all, and those other bands kept touring the entire time.
They've been touring the whole time.
Means this will be at the Wells Fargo Center, and
right.
Or who knows, Lincoln Financial Field.
This is the thing, and I'm a big ridiculous Genesis fan. I saw them at 11 years, and so is Russ. And
so am I, but differently.
And so are you. And I saw them when I was 11 years old in 1978. My brother took me. I've seen them 6 or 7 times. I saw Phil Collins a couple times solo. I love them. I was pissed off after the experience in, over 12 or 13 years ago when they did the reunion tour, not because they said it was the final tour, but because they clearly, and there's a documentary on YouTube where Collins is going through some of the songs and he clearly can't hit the notes anymore, and they had to change the key of the song to be a lower key so he could hit the notes.
No.
It's 10 times worse now. My brother saw him on his I'm Not Dead Yet tour last year, and he was sitting in a chair, and his voice was weak, and he couldn't sing his song. Yeah. So what? I'm sorry. I love Phil Collins, but I'm not contributing to the Phil Collins retirement tour. It's
he hasn't made enough money, has he?
And the only thing that would have made me open up my wallet and pay for tickets as if Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett were going to be part of the show. And I sent you guys the link of the interview with Tony Banks, and it's clear that Tony Banks and Peter Gabriel, at least it's one-sided. Tony Banks hates Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
Like we all knew that, but the quote that really got me, and I even was talking about this last night over dinner and over chuckling, the fact that he actually openly said, "What has Gabriel done since Genesis for all these years?"
Yeah, that's pathetic. I'm sorry.
Pathetic. Why would he say
really
that?
Is absolutely wrong.
I mean, it might have been something sarcastic where he says, "Of course, we know he's done great things."
Okay, but you can't.
But you can't say that.
Yeah, it's hard to read that. I can see it being read both ways, Mike. I see what you're saying. Like, it could be like, what has he done? Like he should have been like, obviously Peter Gabriel has done a ton since then. Way more than Tony Banks has done,
right?
By the way, and both are, but those two were, I've got a little bit of insight on this. I told you guys a little bit. I'll tell folks a little bit of the story because I was fortunate to do an album with Tony Levin and Jerry Marotta. Now, Tony Levin is the bass player who actually
his play with King Crimson, his play with Gabriel.
Yeah, everybody's seen him. You probably, if you follow this at all, he's the big giant bald guy who plays with the big finger things, the big giant big finger bass.
Phenomenal bass player.
Phenomenal bass player, one of the best ever. Jerry Marotta was the drummer in a couple bands, and then was also Peter Gabriel's drummer on tour for the first two. I
think he did session work with Steely Dan and a few other.
He did session work with Steely Dan. The band, is it Arliss or what's the band? I'm going to remember the name of the band.
I don't know.
Anyway, there he was Argent. He was the drummer for that band. He was also the drummer for the Indigo Girls. Whatever. He was all over the place. So he produced a couple of our songs, brought in Tony Levin to help work with us, and I got to go to Applebee's with Tony Levin and Jerry Marotta. And earlier that day, while in the studio, Peter Gabriel had called the studio, and they jokingly put me on the phone for a second with him because they knew that this is the guy that I completely idolized growing up. Peter Gabriel was my guy. Like unbelievably my guy. So I refused to go to Genesis concerts as a kid because without Peter Gabriel, Genesis didn't exist to me. And that was just my artistic snobbery at the time that I, which is obviously ridiculous because Phil Collins is crazy talented. But so I got to hear a lot about the background story and, Tony, and I mean, I think it's widely known that Tony and Peter were really good buddies. They were really tight before everything happened, I'm sorry.
Peter and Tony.
Peter and Tony Banks, right? I'm sorry. Peter and Tony Banks were really tight. And then when Peter left, Tony Banks really felt like it was a personal affront, like the equivalent of like Mike going to work for Puck Daddy or something like that. It would be something that would make me angry to the point of my grave, and I would never be able to forgive him for one bit for the rest of my days. And I think that's where Banks is with Peter Gabriel. And there's that obnoxiousness there. But Peter Gabriel also is apparently incredibly difficult to work with.
Oh, Peter Gabriel's calling you right now.
Yeah, that's not him. I know. Here we go.
No, but we won't belabor this, but it's just I never saw Gabriel with Genesis because I would have had to see him when I was 8 years old. He left in 75. That was and the closest. I mean, there was a reunion concert for that Gabriel and Genesis. They got together in like 1980. I think it was in Nebworth because it was something
that had to do with Peter Gabriel losing a lot of money.
Right, exactly. They came to his aid, and that's a great thing. And they're all still friendly, but there is this rivalry between.
There's levels, right? Like there's levels because you're dealing with musicians. First of all, when you deal with musicians, you're dealing with like all kinds of personalities. And the best musicians I've ever worked with, a few of them have been amazing. Like Jerry Marotta, for example, he's just like a small like offshoot of the Peter Gabriel universe. Was really hard to work with for some people in our band who like to do things quickly, like Cap Neo, who likes to let's bang this stuff out. And then for people who like to experiment, and throw 600 tracks down, which is like me, which is what Jerry Marotta is, which is what Peter Gabriel does. That's another way of doing things. So when you record albums, you end up in a situation where Phil Collins is just bang it out. That's good enough. That's great. We'll keep it going as long as the melody, he's all about the melody and all that. That's fine. Peter's like, let's throw, let's go in the other room and you're going to take this elephant tusk and bang it against the wooden part of the piano and mic it from 6 different places. And we're going to have that. And that kind of stuff is what happens in Peter Gabriel session.
That happens in Yes sessions with Anderson.
Yeah. And what's funny is as people get older, they tend to not do that anymore because they tend to say, we can create that sound in 1,000 different ways. I can do it in 5 seconds by snapping my fingers.
Here's the funny thing. So, like the first Genesis album I ever bought was, and then there were 3, and it was a cutout record, and I only bought it because it was cheap. I barely knew the band. I just knew of them, but I was into Yes and Kansas and bands like that, and I didn't know them, right? So I started listening to that. Then I bought Trick of the Tail. Then I bought
Wind and Wuthering,
and I started doing that. And then by the time Abacab came out, I was all in. I went and saw that tour, the 3 Sides Live tour.
Yeah,
I was all in. But so I never had a chance to see Gabriel. Yeah. I knew some of the Gabriel songs, and I've never seen Gabriel in concert, which I always seem to.
Luckily, I saw Gabriel in concert. I saw Steve Hackett in concert last year, and he was incredible. Yeah. Although the lead singer of his band imitating Gabriel is the same guy who sang Cotton Eye Joe. So I can't get past that. But I'll say this about Gabriel, and I was present for a very significant moment in Peter Gabriel's career. Early in his career, in his solo career, he would crowd surf. He would let the crowd carry him out. Yep.
One of the first to do this, really, probably.
Yeah, he did that in Central Park, New York, with the free concert. Right. You want to talk about gutsy? My wife was at that show, and he was passing himself around in Central Park.
Right. Well, the concert in Buffalo at UB at Alumni Arena was the last show that he ever did it, because as he's surfing out in the crowd, somebody grabbed his crotch. Yeah. And that stopped it. The security had to grab him and put him back on stage, and after that, he never did it anymore. So we'll do a prog rock show.
But just to finish my thought on this though, I've never. So it's funny because Russ has never seen Peter live.
Right.
I've seen Peter live like a dozen times. Yeah. Right. Never seen Genesis live because of my thing. Right. Mike's seen both of them. Mike over there has seen both of them. That's it. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. My wife. All
right? Let's just hypothetically, tickets, decent tickets, not even the best, will be $150. You interrupt.
First of all, I have connections in the music industry. I will never pay.
Okay,
so but I'm really not the fair one to say. So I will.
What is the most that you would pay for it? Let me ask you that.
If I had to pay for them, I would probably be in, just because of the fact that my wife, first of all, loves Genesis, has seen Genesis live without Peter. She doesn't really even know the Peter.
Is this because it's now just a bucket list thing, though?
Yeah, it would be, because it would be like,
okay, that's fair.
The couple bucket list things I had when I was in college that I wrote down for concerts were: 1, I wanted to see Roger Waters live, which I finally got to see. I wanted to see Pink Floyd with Roger Waters, which I never got to see. And I wanted to see Peter Gabriel with Genesis. And of course that's like the big thing that I've never gotten to do.
They'll do that in hologram one day.
Yeah, that's never happened. I'll answer your question, Russ. Nothing. I would not pay anything. I saw them in their prime. I saw them and then there were 3 Tour and Duke Tour and Abacab, and anything now after 13 years ago and seeing what they became then, 13 years later, no. And
I don't even mind that it's the prime. I don't want people to think this is ageism, because both you and I enjoyed the Anderson Raven Wakeman tour, even at their age.
Oh my gosh,
so great.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Yes many times. My favorite Yes concert that I ever saw was Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe in the Round. I thought was incredible.
That was a great show.
Of these sort of senior tours that are going on right now, over the last couple of years, I saw Heart. They were great.
Heart's still great.
I saw Bad Company. They were still really good. Paul Rogers.
Bad Company, here's a little known fact. When in 2004, when the Lightning were in the Stanley Cup, Bad Company played. Paul Rogers and one other band member played before the Stanley Cup. Yeah. Outside, and I have a picture. I'm like one of 3 people that was listening to them, and they were really good. They were playing at the Promenade.
But there are some bands that are still touring that are really, really
good. ELO is great. I was glad I got to
see it. I wanted to go see it. I didn't see it.
Yeah. All right,
let's go.
So much for your connection, Zach.
Well, no, I didn't have. I couldn't go.
Yeah, Richard in the chat says Ann Wilson still has it. Yes, she does. She can still sing. And Nancy Wilson still has it. I would marry her right now.
Yeah. I would like to see the Go-Go's live.
Or you could tweet that to her, Mike. I'm sure she'll respond.
Yeah, sure.
I would go see the Go-Go's live or Belinda Carlisle live any day of the week as well. So
she is touring. I saw that she's touring.
Belinda Carlisle is?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think she's touring without the Go-Go's because I think she's not with the Go-Go's anymore.
Yeah, probably not. All right, let's move on. Thanks, guys, for listening and enduring us. We appreciate it. Here we go. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, March 5th, 2020.
I'm not Phil Collins. I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Genesis.
You could be Phil Collins for like Halloween if you really worked at it. You got like the look a little bit. You got.
I'll get a cane and a neck brace.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Chester Thompson, who clearly isn't going to be on this tour, and that saddens me.
Oh yeah. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday, fill you in on the comings, goings in the hockey world, and give you your projected standings, which you're all craving like no one's business. Okay, so I have to answer every day about them. But anyway, that is but we're gonna get into that. First of all, we have to talk. I think we have to start today off, and I'm sorry about this, but we have to start today off with the Philadelphia Flyers. Because honestly, I didn't see this coming at all. And you know, it still could. Although I remember when we talked about it in the beginning of the year, Russ, and I said, you remember what I said?
No, you say a lot of things, Ek. I mean, let's be fair.
Thanks for caring, Russ.
Doesn't listen to.
I appreciate you caring about what I say, and I remember everything you say. Anyway,
yeah,
what I said was this Alain Vigneault thing is either going to go terribly wrong or unbelievably well.
Yeah, you did say that.
Because that's the way these kind of moves work, right? Like this wasn't just going to be another year where they were a bubble team or whatever. It wasn't going. It was either going to fall off the map and they were going to be in the Lafreniere chase or whatever, or they were going to actually really be good. And as it turns out, you know, they're really good and they're getting it together. They're playing great hockey. I haven't seen them play this confident going back a decade. I mean, I think that this is the most confident I've seen them play since the playoffs of 2010. And
yeah, I think that's all fair. And I did like the Vigneault signing, if you remember. And for a lot of the reasons that we're seeing on the ice now, I think fans should definitely enjoy the ride. Matter of fact, there's a large Twitter debate going on because, you know, Mike Missinelli has started to pump out the hate. Well, the reverse hate. He's pumped out the hate for 25 years, but now it's the reverse hate because he posted that this team is amazing because now he wants to latch on because the Sixers are not any good. They might make
Dean in the chat room remembers exactly what I said. Thank you, Dean.
Well, that's good.
The Flyers would either finish second or sixth.
Well, now you should send Dean something.
I should.
Anyhow,
it was impressive. Getting
back to it, the only thing that I would caution Flyers fans with, and look, enjoy the ride. They are on a run right now, 16-4, 7 in a row.
Yeah,
there's still 15 games in the season, and you just lost JVR. Like, you've got to hope somehow they don't face Pittsburgh in the first round because I still do not think they could beat Pittsburgh no matter how hot they are. I don't.
That's a tough one. I mean, I don't know. I think that this team
Pittsburgh's way better defensively than people realize.
Well, I think right now Philadelphia is benefiting from the fact that after the deadline, after Washington and Pittsburgh loaded up, I think there was sort of a false sense of security that both of the teams had that, okay, we're competing for first or second place in the division. We're not worried about anybody behind us. And I think Philadelphia is really, you know, I think stepped up and played pretty well. But again, when we get into the playoffs, I don't think they're even close to Washington or to Pittsburgh. Now,
that's hard to say right now because I mean, and I'm not trying to be I have looked for every hole I can find with this Flyers team. But what I would tell you is that the Flyers, Capitals, and Penguins all have issues. They all three of them have issues.
You just lost your one. You lost a big net front presence though, Ek.
Yeah, you did. But he's been, like we talked about before, he's been playing third line minutes. He's been playing in.
Sure, but he's still a net front guy. Who's
present? No question about it.
But you might be able to get him.
Yeah, right. Like
we might be able to get him back before the playoffs, depending on the extent of the injury. I mean, if it's
a broken hand, I doubt they will.
Right. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, if it's like a metacarpal, if it's like a bone in the hand like this,
then depends if they need surgery in the hand or whatever. There's different kinds of things.
Yeah. Then I mean, if it's something that they put a pin in, he could be back.
Which hand is it? Is it his left hand or his right hand?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it was blocking a shot, and that the same thing happened to Jake Muzzin, and he's out. They said at least 6 to 8 weeks. So it's probably the same time frame. But honestly, I think right now Washington and Pittsburgh, it's more a question of adjusting to new players that have been added to that roster.
So let's start with that. Ilya Kovalchuk played 15 minutes, 3 minutes and 55 seconds on the power play, didn't register a shot on goal.
I mean, this is what we talked about.
This is where he sucks the life out of a team, and Eck and I talked about this.
It's like, put him on a team where he's not the number one guy getting number 1 minutes, and I mean, what he did with Montreal was so obviously inflated by not just his time, but more or less his ego. Like, because it's like it's when his ego is getting fed, like, I am the guy, he's going to play well for you. When he's a character, he's not going to give you anything.
I'm assuming if he's playing that many minutes, he's playing on the first power play and not on the second.
It was on and off. I watched it. It was like it varied. I mean, they still don't really seem to know what they're doing with them, to be honest.
And that's the thing, Ak. I mean, it's like you have to sort of adjust. I mean, I don't think their power play has been great guns all year. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put Kovalchuk into the mix.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a time of adjustment, and I'm not saying the guy's going to go out and score 25 goals, but I think
to add him for a goal for them yet.
Right. To add him for a 3rd round pick is nothing.
That's true. No, it's not nothing because go ahead, Russ. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I think he's hurting their team now.
Not nothing.
Because they're trying to fit him in where somebody else, you wouldn't make this kind of adjustment to try and fit them in like this.
Precisely. And that's really, the fact is that he does come in and he is a presence, and he's a Russian presence with Russian players. And there's you don't want to get inside Ovechkin's head. You don't want to start messing up anything. Like Ovechkin, still needs to know he's the king. Of course he does, but there's always Kovalchuk and Ovechkin have a history of like playing those roles. Like if you remember, there was a while where Kovalchuk and Ovechkin were comparable. And considered like who was the better, Kovalchuk or Ovechkin.
Sure, yeah, that was
the thing. And to me, this is an issue now. To me, the Capitals' bigger problem I felt was like their defense. And I'm also going to say that Tom Wilson was a problem last night for the Caps. It's
Tom Wilson did not perform a way that helped a function that helped his team. He hurt his team, and I agree with you. But the other thing is, I got to give Sean Couturier credit because in the games against the Capitals, he has neutralized Ovechkin. Now, Ovechkin did have an open shot at the net that he missed, and he was mad at that. But for the most part, Couturier has really neutralized him, and that's a big deal. But the problem when you play Pittsburgh is he can't neutralize Malkin and Crosby. That's why you worry about Pittsburgh, because of that two-headed monster with everything else they have going for him.
But Crosby has really not been good lately.
Oh, no, he got back on track with Ottawa. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it's Ottawa. Come on now. I mean,
it doesn't matter. It's just all you have to do is get confidence again. He got 4 points that game.
And they had, I think they lost
goals.
I think they lost 6 games in a row. So, I mean, sometimes, like I said, sometimes a team, it's not the playoffs. Right now, you're sort of in the dog days. You're going to make the playoffs unless you lose 14 or 15 in a row. So there's no motivation there other than positioning for a playoff spot. Like teams like Florida and Toronto right now have motivation. If they don't play well down the stretch, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think the Flyers are
the same way.
Yeah, I think the Flyers are for real. I was just asked that on Twitter, and I do think they're for real. But you also have to be for real when you start looking at first-round matchups. Again, nothing's been easy for like the last 5 years in the playoffs. I go back to when the Rangers played Atlanta. I knew that was a sweep. There's no sweeps that you could teams that you could look at that you would at least say this looks like a sweep. Like how often do we pick a sweep on this show?
Right. No, it's crazy. I mean,
This
is the thing that kind of went under the radar last night was the Wilson Hag fight. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is the second. First of all, look at who's going after Thompson and Robert Haig, right? And these guys are like,
well, he went. I will say this.
He didn't go after Haig. Haig went after him.
He went after Thompson because he didn't realize that what's his name was losing his edge. His guy was losing his edge.
Yeah.
And he thought Thompson pushed him into the boards when he really didn't. But he couldn't see that his teammate was losing his edge. So then he was just sort of sticking up for his teammate. I didn't think that was terrible.
But the Flyers will take the Thompson for Wilson trade every day,
every time.
Or the Robert Hagg trade. It's like Hagg. I've heard him said both ways. How do you say it? Robert Hagg?
Hagg. I said Hagg.
It's Hagg at this point.
I've heard it. Yeah, okay,
I know, I've heard it both ways, but
all right. So Robert Hagg, who is defending
Nicholas Robert Hagg.
Robert Hagg. So it's defending Giroux. Okay. So what happens? And the thing that was kind of crazy last night is Tom Wilson went high and hard at Giroux on a check, and Giroux, unless Giroux isn't really smart, quick, and sharp to see it coming, we're talking about like how many games Wilson's getting suspended for today.
I was going to say that God, we've never seen that out of Tom Wilson.
And that to me was that, and it's amazing to me when you look at it like that. If I'm the NHL, why can't I review that? Because honestly, that isn't obvious. Like he is trying to go after the Flyers.
Well, you could review it after the fact, and then they seemingly don't. Once in a blue moon, they'll get the after effect fine or suspension that wasn't in the game. But for obvious egregious stuff, they don't. I think you're right. I think they should look. I think every game they should mark out 3 or 4 things while the game's going on and go back and review. Just because, and I don't think they do that.
This was very obvious. It was very dangerous. He takes like 4 or 5 steps, full speed at Giroux after the puck's gone, completely gone, and Giroux just catches it at the last second, ducks out of the way, and Wilson's hit his arm goes into the glass. I mean, that's how high the guy is.
Wilson has proved over the last couple of years that he has the same impulse control as Nazem Kadri. He's gotten suspended how many times during the playoffs? He's a loose cannon. I mean, he's a talented player. He's a bull in a china shop. He's a tough matchup because he's so big and he's so fast and he's talented. But he's an idiot. He makes stupid decisions and he gets suspended when his team needs him most. I mean, I'll be surprised if he doesn't get suspended for something stupid before the playoffs start.
This was a game where I felt like Holtby wasn't locked in. And so this is one where if Eck wants to kill Holtby, I don't blame him because even when he made that, I'm not killing Holtby. I mean, okay, well, there was a point where they just scored a goal, and then Konecny hit a post. Holtby looked like he was late getting to that corner, and at that point on, I felt like he was shaky, and he was, and so he's got to be 100%, or they could switch to Samsonov. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened.
Samsonov's been the better goalie. I mean, it's the reality.
That's what I mean,
but Holtby won him a Stanley Cup, so it's like
they're going to go with Holtby.
They're going to start with Holtby. I don't think they will be long to change out of Holtby if they need.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, I honestly I think they don't go to Samsonov unless they're down 2-0 or 3-1 in the series. I think they'll stick with Holtby.
Yeah,
it's not Grubauer. Remember, Grubauer was the backup last year. They started a couple years ago. They started him in the series. It started him in the playoffs, and then they went to Holtby.
And the Caps scored the first goal in this game, right?
The Caps scored the first goal. I believe so.
So usually when a team scores the first goal, what is it, like 75% chance of winning?
Yeah.
And the Flyers took over after that.
They totally took over. And when they scored the first goal, it was, like watching the game, which was unfortunate because my daughter ran into a stationary pole with her car midway through the second period, and she's fine. But, I had to go and I missed the most of the game after that, but I left it 1-1. But, it was just, they really, I mean, for most of the game, when I was watching the beginning of that first half of that game, at least, or the first period of that game, I was like, this is the Capitals going to win this game. It felt like that, to me, it felt like one of those games like that, especially after that first goal. What I've been incredibly impressed with, though, and it needs to be said, is that Derek Grant has just been like,
Grant's been really good defensively, especially.
He has been like a hell of a pickup, and we don't see him that much here. I mean, because he was in Anaheim and all this
He's
stuff.
been a lot better than Thompson, actually.
Oh yeah, he's been. I mean, and not just like defensively, but he did a really slick little kick pass last night on one of the goals. Mm-hmm. He's been damn impressive, and I've just been
good.
Yeah, he's made everything. I mean, that turned out into a hell of a move, honestly. And
I'm telling you, even though we've picked on JVR, it's a big loss because now Derek Grant's probably your net front presence, and he's going to get more ice time than you intended to give him per game because you're not going to put Joel Farabee in front of the net. You're not going to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So last night, other games that went on last night that are notable. Vancouver just this is. I mean, Vancouver's in trouble, and I just it's obvious that this injury. But last night was one of those games that when I was looking at my projected things. At first, last night was a game that projected Arizona to win, and then Arizona played so poorly over the last couple of weeks, it just barely edged out to, like it said, Vancouver would win in overtime last night. But at the end of the day, Arizona still wins this game because Arizona has had Vancouver's number a lot over the years,
and they needed to win this game.
They need to win the game, and now they're actually not in bad shape. So it's kind of crazy, like when you look at that, and that kind of brings me to my point. But go ahead, Mike. You have something else?
No, I was just going to say. I mean, Arizona. I mean, they beat the Sabres earlier in the week. Now they've beaten the Canucks, and Darcy Kemper is back. And Kemper, you can't underestimate the importance of Kemper being back and providing them with really good goaltending.
Right.
And how that's a different. They're still. Kevin was on the show a couple days ago, and he said, he just doesn't understand why Arizona isn't scoring more. Well, maybe if their output is 2 to 3 goals a game, they need Kemper to stand on his head to get wins, and they're getting wins now. Vancouver it's the opposite situation because they've lost Markstrom. Demko he's playing well, but the problem is that Vancouver's defense is their team defense is not that good. They've outscored some of their problems throughout the year. Besser's hurt. They're not a full team right now, and that's hurting them.
Yeah, it's really hurting them. And when you watch them play, it's frustrating because they obviously have the talent. They got off to the great start.
Besser's a massive loss.
He's a massive loss. He's probably, besides, LS
he's their second best player.
He's their second best player. And in some ways, he's even more important than Pettersson because of what he does.
Right. He's the trigger man. He's the trigger man.
He's the trigger man, and he's also kind of like he's the leader in that team. You feel it,
I do want to talk about a debate I had with someone via email yesterday, thinking that Dominic Kubalik should be the Calder leader and not Quinn Hughes. And I was trying to point out what Quinn Hughes does as a top pairing number one defenseman.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was in -9 was actually playing into it as far as, this person was
lately
concerned and just looking at stats. And it's like, I get that it's, and he has more points, right? And I think, like I said, there hasn't been a defenseman that's led the Calder rookies in points in forever. But I just think it's more than that. But it is hard to explain it all on email. Like, how do I explain the confidence that this guy has going up the ice? How do I explain his first pass sets up the offense? Like, it's hard to explain all
this. You watch Vancouver to understand it. You really have to watch him. It's not a statistical thing. It's no. He is great statistically, but he really, the best thing I can say is, and I've used this player before because to me, he's like, when I use this player, he's like the pinnacle of that kind of defenseman to me in history, but it is that Scott Niedermayer thing to me.
Yeah, it is.
And that is something that is just, Scott Niedermayer was like he was always impressive statistically, but wasn't going to blow your mind away statistically. But when you saw what Niedermayer did all around the ice and what the team looked like without Niedermayer versus with him, it was unbelievable. You absolutely knew that he was your quarterback. He was your guy. And for a rookie to be doing that, like Hughes is doing, I agree. He's been amazing, absolutely incredible. And, and
McCarr will still be in the race too.
You can almost put him as like one of the top 2 American-born defensemen right now. Like, and that is to me an unbelievable stat. There's a lot of good American. Who? Werenski. I would take Hughes over Werenski.
No, not yet.
I wouldn't take him over Seth Jones either.
No, I think he's 3rd or 4th.
Yeah. At such a young age, have
it's hard, but give him a year, and I think. I would say Seth Jones. Seth Jones is the best.
Like, I'll take him over Cam Fowler, and I love Cam Fowler.
Yeah, John
McAvoy, Charlie McAvoy. There's other really
John Carlson, as somebody said in the chat.
Yeah, Carlson's number 1 right now.
Carlson's number 1 to me too. But I think that after that, you run into a situation where you're like, okay, this is, Hughes is definitely top 4.
Top 4 is fair. That's
as a rookie in a time when America is teaming with really good defensemen, like this is the best American defense we've had in a long time. If we were to go to the Olympics, he's an Olympian, and it's like that is pretty crazy. His brother's not.
And I don't want to, diminish Kubalik because he has 29 goals. He does play with Kane and Taves. It does help him. He is a +3 still, and that's good. But I feel like, hey, if he wasn't playing with Kane and Taves, would he have 29 goals? No, I think he would probably have 15.
Remember, Richard Panik scored 20 goals with Kane and Taves.
Right. So there's definitely a factor.
Yeah.
And he's got a great shot. And he is a rookie. But still, I just think Hughes is right now doing more. And I think Makar will creep back in the race, too, if he gets back healthy.
The injuries was definitely winning this for a while, but
the injuries really killed Makar. I mean, I think right now Hughes might be leading in that race, and the injuries are the difference.
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of ironic, the year that many people thought another Hughes would win this award.
Well, it's still,
this will be a wonderful thing. Quinn and Jack will love this till the day they die. Like this will be like one of their
a big point for them. Yeah, they're very
Quinn will hold this over Jack's head forever. It'll be fantastic.
They would definitely do that, and they're really good to each other.
They are really tight, and they're
not spirited, but they definitely have a competition.
Oh yeah, and the competitiveness that you gotta love. Before we get into another debate, which I want to have with Mike briefly, I'm going to hold off on that one, because I don't want to dominate. I want to get into my blog today because I've gotten a lot of good comments about it throughout the league, actually, from a lot of different teams have been calling me up and stuff like that. And that is what history tells us. The blog's called "History Tells If a Team Not in the Playoffs Can Still Make It As of Now." And this is, my biggest issue with the NHL has always been the point for the overtime loss, right? That is what ruins this league to me. No question that. And just telling you that doing my projection thing,
I agree.
I have to take into account that every week that passes now, the amount of overtime games goes up by about 10%. It's like insane. It's just there's an incredible thing because teams just, I'm going to get the point and get out. I'm going to get the point and get, they will play, and you start to see, definitely early in the third period. Midway through the third period, teams just hold. If it's a tie, especially an interconference game where they're playing against the two conferences, both teams will take that point and they'll wait. And it's crazy. And without having 3 points for like 3 points for a regulation win, the NHL has created this thing that's such a lie that these teams are actually close together. And you guys have talked about it too, that the perception that teams can make do really well or make a big run and come back. It's just, it's such a lie without, the only way they could fix that would be either getting rid of the 1 point loss or making a 3 point regulation win, which we've talked about, a way that teams could actually get back. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to know just what exactly that meant. Cause I'm like the eternal optimist. Yeah. So on March 1st, okay. So I went to March 1st since 2013-14. This is what we've had. Okay. On the average at that point, teams have played 65 games. They roughly have like 17 games left, which is 34 possible points to be had for each team, which is, so if a team's down by like 1 or 2 points, you think there's 34 points out there.
That's a lot of points. Yeah.
Right. Okay. There have been 31 teams, okay, on the average of 5 point year who on March 1st were sitting 4 points or less outside of a playoff spot. So 4 or less. That's not even a lot. That's not a lot. 4 points or less. So that's 31 teams. How many of those teams do you guys think? I don't know if you saw the blog or not, but how many of those?
I'm recording what you're saying, so this way, if you ask me if I've heard what you said.
You're funny. All right, Russ, how many of those teams do you think have made the playoffs of the 31 teams who are 4 points or less outside?
4 points or less out of 31. I'm gonna say 17.
Nope. No, really, this is like crazy low. 5. Okay, so
wow,
5 total in 6 years who are less than 4 points out of the playoffs. And that's even including games in hand. I didn't even worry about the games.
It really does show what a math problem it is.
It's ridiculous. So 5 of those 31 teams managed to make the playoffs. There was one year, like for example, 2016 and 17, that the playoffs were set on March 1st. So only once is a team with more than 4 points in the last 6 years made the playoffs. More than 4 points. Ottawa? That would be Ottawa, right? Where they were 7 points out.
Right.
And to get to that, to do that though.
Yeah, that was a hamburger run.
I mean, remember what they did? Their record, they went 15-2-3.
Yeah.
In their last 20 games or whatever it was.
How far did you go back on this?
I went back to the shortened season, right? Because
2014, the Leafs were in a playoff spot on March the 1st, and they went the 18-wheeler went over the
right, and that's the year that Ottawa took over. So basically, so if we go back to 18-19, last year, Colorado and Pittsburgh were 1 point out on March 1st, and both made the playoffs. That's the only team that made it last year, but they were only 1 point out. 17-18, Colorado was 4 points out and made the playoffs. 16-17, like I said, they were set. 15-16, Philly was 3 points out on March 1st and made the playoffs. 14-15 was Ottawa with 7. And then 13-14, Columbus was 3 points out on March 1st and made the playoffs. And we all kind of remember these runs. Like, remember, like, Columbus, Ottawa, Philly, those 3 runs. I remember all of them as being like, wow, can't believe that they made the playoffs. They were only 3 points out on March 1st. And yet we treated it like it was the most incredible thing ever to happen. Like, that's impossible, right? So,
and I'm going to tell you, it was either 05-06 or 06-07 where the Rangers were at a point where Tom Reddy came out and said, yeah, I know we have to win something like 20 out of 23 games to make the playoffs, and they actually did.
Yep, I remember that too. And this
I thought it was crazy for saying it.
So right now, like when you look through the East, like the East, Carolina's 3 points out. They're the closest team to a playoff spot in the East. The Rangers are 4 out, the Panthers are 6 out, and Montreal's 7 out. Montreal's got 68 games played though, so they're done. They're done.
They've been done for a month.
Well, they're way out. They'd have to have an unbelievable run, and they'd have to hope for all kinds of things to go wrong. And
right, so is this
points are given out? There's no way that much could go wrong because there's going to be 1 point for losses given.
Okay, so can we now pronounce teams dead based on?
Yeah, I mean, because I've been pronouncing them dead since January, and then
that's what we're gonna do.
They're dead.
We need to start pronouncing teams dead based on X findings.
I do not ever, advise against pronouncing teams dead. I think it's a bad idea, and I also think it's just wrong because I think that teams,
Ducks, Sharks,
if you're a fan of that team and you're sitting around,
Blackhawks, they could all go home.
Who are we to say this in the West?
We are hockey experts, and we can deem teams dead.
I just named you the 4: the Kings, the Ducks, the Sharks, and the Blackhawks can all go home. They're done.
Yeah, the Blackhawks are 6 points out of a wild card spot.
Yeah, they're 6 point out. They are.
And they have 2 games in hand on Winnipeg. And I think based on the fact that they traded their number 1 goaltender and they can't keep the puck out of their own net, that they are dead. Now, mathematically, are they dead? No. But are they really dead? Yes.
It's possible to say that they're dead, Mike, because of that. What you just said, you made your point. I mean, you can't now listen, we can think that the chances are really unbelievably slim, but I refuse to declare teams dead. I think that this is a sport people live for positivity.
Yeah, well, no, I don't. I live for negativity, and I'll say this right now. I'm going to the Sabres Penguins game tonight. Dig up some dirt down at the Erie Canal, at the canal side. Dig up some dirt, take it into the building, and throw it on the ice because they are dead. The Sabres are.
Yeah, I'll tell you the dead teams. Dead teams in the East: Detroit, Ottawa, New Jersey, Buffalo, Montreal, Florida, New York. All dead. They're dead.
There's a song by Queen, All Dead, All Dead.
The Rangers are 4 points out.
They are all dead.
That's just crazy. I mean, but listen, as I'm saying this, okay, you shouldn't declare them, but after just proving that in likelihood you're right, okay, but
that's it. You proved my case.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything because the reality is that we still have hockey games to be played, right? And you can't sit back and if a team is 6 points out with. Like Chicago, 6 points out with 2 games at hand. They could be 2 points out, Mike. You can't say that team.
Florida's played 2 more games than everybody. Florida's played 1 or 2 more games than everybody.
No, Florida has not. Florida has 66 points, 66 games.
You really think they're making it?
They're 5 points. They're 5 points behind the Leafs.
I am telling you that projected standings have Florida making it.
As a wild card or as a third place?
As a wild card.
Okay. Oh my God.
Well, they're 5.
Listen, this is the reality. One of Florida, Carolina, and Columbus is going to make it.
Okay? The only one that they can, I think that there's a reasonable chance that they can catch is Columbus, and not because Columbus is so wounded by all these injuries, and plus they have 2 games in hand on them.
And the Rangers won't catch him because Shesterkin is out. That's the only reason. If he had been in this whole time, they would be in it. But the fact that he is out, they're out.
See, I think that even as important as the number of points you're behind a playoff spot, right now the most important thing is the teams in between you and that playoff spot.
Right.
Florida's 5 points behind the Leafs. They're 5 points behind the Islanders. But there are 2 teams in between them for the wild card.
And you're right about that. That is absolutely the case because of this fact that there are these 3-point games with the amount of teams that are between you. Is deadly. That is unbelievably deadly. But the crazy thing is, so people are putting the statistics up of the Predators. Okay, the Predators' chances of making the playoffs, according to this stat site that they were doing, 24.9%.
Yeah, and we talked to Pete Weber yesterday, and they said, I said 4 days ago, it looked good for the Predators because they had 2 games in hand and they were tied for the wild card spot. Then they lose, they get destroyed by Edmonton, they lose to Minnesota. They still have a game in hand, but now other teams have moved forward, and now that their other chances are.
Here was the quote from Pete.
They're getting destroyed by goaltending right now.
Well, but here, and he did say that. But actually, he said defense is really what's killing them.
It's a combination, but definitely they're not getting any big.
But here's what he said. He basically said, when I said, going back to the Winter Classic, I don't know which Nashville team is showing up. And he said, I'm at the rink every day, and I don't know which team is going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have 2 different coaches.
Yeah. No, it is the coaching change. There's a lot of things going against Nashville, but their schedule goes for them in a lot of good ways. And the reality is
you're counting the Kings as a win. The Kings are beating everybody lately.
No, I know. I'm not. And I know. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's possible. I mean, what you wonder though, okay, what I've been doing a lot of research on this because next year I'm going to change this in my thing is how long you have this post where sellers don't care anymore bump after the trade deadline, how long that goes. Because I'm checking it out, it usually goes for about a week to 10 days where teams that sell off have pretty good records. But then we're right about that right now.
Because the pressure's off.
Yeah, I want to see what the Kings do like this coming.
I mean, the San Jose Sharks look like world beaters.
Right, Sharks this weekend. The Devils are beating everybody. Like the Devils are like.
The Kings are playing better.
Yeah, I mean, all those teams. Anaheim's playing better. It's like all those teams are playing better. How long that lasts, and there's a natural bump, and then eventually, there is definitely a point at which talent, does take over to a degree.
Yeah, it'll last as long as the Leafs are on the West Coast.
All right. So, I mean, of all the teams they're not in right now, I still, my projected things, and I'm going to go with it because I've looked through it so many times in the different things and I might be wrong because if the Predators or the Panthers can't get any goaltending, neither of those teams is going to make the playoffs. Okay. Those goalies have to turn it around. There's no 2 ways about that.
Carolina, same thing with goaltending.
And I don't think Carolina's goaltending will turn around. That's why I don't have them in the playoffs.
That is the only thing holding them back.
That's why I think they don't make it. And I think that Carolina and Columbus with all the injuries, you're right. I mean, and Columbus's schedule is brutal. They have a lot.
I'm going to tell you, they're bucking the trend because Torts has them circling the wagons and it's working.
Yeah, for now. And
they're getting players back. Ryan Murray is skating.
Well, Russ said this a couple weeks ago. The Blue Jackets are the type of team that will steal points. And I'll use Toronto as
a point there. Yep.
Right, exactly. And I'll use Toronto as an example. They were tied 2-2 going in the third period with San Jose. San Jose scores 3 third-period goals, and they win 5-2.
Yes.
Against the Blue Jackets, if they played the Blue Jackets would find some way to at least get a point, get that to overtime, get it tied to overtime, and maybe they lose because then they don't have enough offense to pull off the victory. But those points add up, and they've been getting those points all year, even with 8-9 guys on the IR. And that's like one of the things, if you're a Leaf fan, you got to be a little bit scared of because they're not getting those loser points. They're blowing games. They've blown 3 games in the last month where they were tied or leading going into the third period. And that 3 points that they could have had from loser points could be the difference between them making and missing the playoffs.
Completely. And Corpusalo just came back, didn't he?
Who did? I'm sorry?
Corpusalo, didn't he just
come back? I think he just came back, yeah.
Right. So that's another he just played last game. That's another plus for them. And again, they played that game to overtime. And this is the formula. And Tortorella knows how to do this formula. So I can't count that team out because once they had a little bit of a hold on it, he knows how to hold on to it, and they do have players coming back.
And I agree with both of you that Carolina is behind the 8 ball because I think it was Don Waddell came out and said that Reimer and Mrazek wouldn't be back for a week to 10 days. They've got 4 games in hand on Columbus. It's not one thing if it's 1 or 2. We're talking
4 is a lot.
4 is a lot.
Oh yeah, no, it's a whole lot. And they, I listen. We don't know what's going to happen, but honestly, I have a real hard time saying they're dead because I don't think Carolina's okay. And I think Columbus, I don't think I think at the end of the day, we're going to see a big battle between Carolina, Columbus, and Florida for that final spot. And I think that in the West, you're going to see a battle between
Arizona,
Winnipeg, Vancouver, and Minnesota. and Nashville. The
Minnesota's got a real outside chance. They don't have much of a chance.
They're 1 point out right now.
I know they have an outside chance.
I mean, yeah, I don't think. I mean, they have a tough schedule, so I'm going with you. I'm agreeing with you on that. But
I'm actually, to be honest, Guerin needs to make the switch to Stalock right now, and I said that 3 weeks ago. That's their best chance because Stalock has been the better goalie. Because this has kind of been a tough year on Dubnyk, and I would play Stalock more. I would.
Yeah. No, I don't. I agree with you on that one. I definitely would play him a lot more. I mean, like when you look at,
he has to be the number one, but just play him more.
You look at who Florida has to play, like the rest of the way. They've got a couple tough games coming up for sure. I mean, they've got Montreal this weekend. Then they've got St. Louis and Dallas, tough games, but then they go New Jersey, Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal. It's like their record, their schedule. I mean, those teams could always beat them, but it's like,
yeah. Okay, check this out. In 36 games, Stalock has a 2.59 goals against and a 9.12 save percentage. On that team, that's really good, man.
Yeah. No, it is really good. I mean,
that's really good.
And so the people saying that Minnesota has a better percentage chance, I mean, I don't know where the hell they're getting that from because you look at Minnesota's schedule, it's insane. I mean,
I don't think they have a better
probably percentage. Sports club stats.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like those sites because you have to look at who they're playing. It's really important to check.
I mean, I think some of these look at it from a strict math perspective,
you do.
And won't take those other things into account because they're not hockey.
No, they have to, and I get that, but we're hockey people. We understand there's different things about this,
right?
And these back-to-back things where teams that don't have a really good backup goalie, they're splitting the back-to-back. That's a problem. There's things that are happening. I mean, I guess you will see some teams down the stretch, do the God forbidden thing of playing their starting goalie on back-to-back nights. I'm sure because they have to make the playoffs. But
just like a good math lesson, Heck, I think we got to move on.
We'll move on, and that's fine. I want to get into before we go. I do want to talk about.
Come on, Mike! If you never told me you never tuned out in math class, I did a million times.
Freshman math was the only class I ever failed in any school ever, and it was because it was boring and I had a bad teacher.
Yeah.
So FlyerFan16 wants to come on at some point. FlyerFan16, email me at eklund@hockeybuzz.com. We'll talk about that. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, not today though, because we're almost done.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. But just email.
Unless you want to come on for 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
No.
Yeah, eklund@hockeybuzz.com and
Mike said no. Sorry, Flyers fan.
No, but in the future, sure, but not 3 minutes left.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what if you have a site that that does this kind of prediction thing. That's cool. I'll just check it out. I want to see listen, it's science. To me, this is like trying to come up with this thing is like I'm perfectly willing to just check out everything. So let's move on for a second to the discussion I had with Mike this morning, which is not really about the Maple Leafs, but of course was done in context of the Maple Leafs because they are the ones who do this more than any other team. But the context is this of I said that Ryan Miller and Carolina is baffled. The Carolina didn't get Ryan Miller is baffling to me. That looking at what happens because if you watched Ryan Miller play last night again, and you've watched him play, and he hasn't played that often. Granted, he's played less games, but which means more that he actually is probably really pretty rested and could help you in a run. But he beat Colorado. Colorado's on an 8-game winning streak last night, and he's the reason that the Ducks won that game. And when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, Toronto, who went on and got,
and you could see that was the reason. I could tell. I was watching that game as long as I could stay up.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto goes out and gets Campbell, who's a good goalie, long term can help them for sure. But they're in the playoffs now, and the debate is this. It sums down to this situation, okay? Mike or the Leafs, and I think Mike speaks for the Leafs. I think the Leafs are thinking the same way that we don't have a great chance of winning in the playoffs. So why would we spend a little bit more to get, or even go out and just give another 3rd round pick to get Miller as well, or improve our goaltending because we're probably not going to beat Boston or Tampa in the first round no matter what we do, and that's so then why waste our time doing it? That's the thinking. And I just think that is insane.
I don't think it's that. I think it's asset management that they're worried about.
No, of course, I mean, you're not getting these guys for free, but if you're willing to give up a 3rd round pick for a guy who could potentially help you win a playoff series.
And for sure they could have gotten him for a 3rd.
The asking price for Ryan Miller was a 3rd round pick.
Okay, but they already lost a 2nd in this draft, right?
Right.
In this draft, the Leafs.
No, they lost their 1st.
So they lost their 1st. So now if you're talking, they have no 1st and no 3rd, and they just have a 2nd and then a 4th, a 5th. that gets a little thin, Eck.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's like, okay, say the price was a 3rd round pick for Miller, and Miller is a UFA at the end of the year. He's 39 years old. He's making $1.1 million or $1.2 million, and more than likely it's a stopgap for the last 20 games of the regular season, and he's going to go back to Anaheim or retire or go back to a West Coast team next year.
Right.
The Leafs are looking at it as we've gone through McElhinney, Sparks, Pickard, Hutchinson over the last 2 years, that we want stability backing up Anderson, and we're giving up the same 3rd round pick for a guy who signed for 2 years after this year at $1.6 million. And Dubas knows him because he had him in Sault Ste. Marie. To me, that's a no-brainer. Even though I think Ryan Miller is a better goaltender because he's a former starter and Jack Campbell has recouped his career and he's playing really well. If I'm the Leafs, I would have done that deal because you have security for the next 2 years.
But if Anderson goes down, and I get the security part.
If Anderson goes down, the season is over with. It is. It really is.
It's just not. I mean, based on history, it's not. I mean, and based on when you look at teams that have gone far the Flyers go to the Stanley Cup Finals on 3 goalies. You know, like they that was a crazy year, granted, but still, all these are. I mean, that year, the first year, the Oilers and Hurricanes go to the Stanley Cup. Both, I think, were wildcard teams. Then, the whole thing of, the Kings win from the 8th seed, the 6th seed, and the 3rd seed, I guess. They win their Stanley Cups. I mean, the reality, and last year, the Lightning have the best season in the history of time and get swept in the first round. You have to just get to the playoffs, and you have to put your best team on the ice, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I really do believe that Toronto, if they won that Game 7, and they were playing good enough to win that Game 7 against Boston, if they win that Game 7, they go on and they beat Columbus, and who knows what happens in the conference finals, but they could have won the Stanley Cup last year. They're 1 game away, and yet their goaltending, again, whether it's the goaltending or not, really last year is pointless. The point I'm trying to make is you owe it to yourself to go for it when you're in the playoffs. You just cannot sit there and say that we're not going to win in the playoffs.
Well, and the other thing is they didn't in a deal with Anaheim, they wouldn't have gotten a veteran forward like Clifford that they did, who is helping the Leafs out right now based on the fact that they're not a very aggressive team and they needed some sandpaper. He provided that. I don't think they would have gotten that in an Anaheim deal. So I'm just saying, no doubt that Miller would have been an upgrade over Hutchinson, but I think I would have been, and you're saying that's not the case, but I would have been surprised that he would waive his no trade to go to Toronto. And I know for a fact that he wouldn't resign there. So they were looking at.
He's not going to resign there. There's no question about it. But
but let's say
he wanted to go win the Stanley Cup somewhere. And I also think that Lundqvist is in the same.
Well, he's not going to win a Stanley Cup in Toronto because they're not winning the cup.
Okay, but let's get past that for a minute.
Sure.
Let's say they make that deal, Eck, and they go out still in the first round, or maybe they get to the second round and they go out. At that point, going into the draft, they will get destroyed by the fan base and the media because now they're starting to trade away their picks. And hold on, now we really don't know the direction and the plan of this organization anymore. That's the part that's starting to unravel when you get a guy like Miller. Is all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, so we were doing it this way, but now we're still falling back on the old Leafs ways once in a while. And you can go back and someone like Mike would say, well, there's Prakanik and there was this. And he'll go back and trace those picks and see what the players turned into. And that's where you start having trouble.
No, I don't listen. You don't want to give away assets, of course. But, at the same time, the job that you have is to win the Stanley Cup.
I call me stupid. I value a 21 or 22-year-old forward in Alexander Volkov, who I think will be a good NHLer. I value him a lot more than 20 games of friggin' Brian Boyle. And that's what the Leafs traded. Right. Was Alexander Volkov. That was who
I told you there's always a Mike to fall back on.
No, there is, but listen, when you lose, like you're saying, like Russ, when you lose, of course you can make that argument. But the reality is, your fan base, you owe it to your fan base.
No, but the odds are
position to win.
Right. Okay. But the odds are they are going to lose, even with that move.
But you can't base it on that when you look at the way the NHL playoffs work. You have no idea what's
going on. No, but you could base it on the fact that if I get Ryan Miller, do I think I'm getting to the Stanley Cup? And I think if you ask the Leafs in the room, they would say no with that defense because Ryan Miller's a little too old. No matter how he plays right now, there's not much defense in front of him. He won't be able to hold up. I think that's what they would say.
Yeah, if he doesn't hold up, but if he gets hot, which is also a possibility, and maybe Anderson's not, you have definitely more of a. To me, it feels like a fear. Like you go.
I will tell you, I think Anaheim's defense is probably better than the Leafs because now they've added a couple of big guys, big forwards like the hockey puck guys hitting guys in the corner. The Leafs don't have any of that.
Yeah, no, I mean
Miller.
No, they don't. But at the same time, Miller is the kind of goalie who plays better the more shots he gets. That's historically been he's been that kind of goalie. So let's to me, the fear is you bring Miller in, and now to me, it's like the playing not to losing. Now we've got Anderson and Miller, and people are going to question who we're playing, and whoever we play will make the wrong choice, and they're worried about that. So when you bring in Campbell, Anderson's obviously still the guy, but you bring in Miller in the playoffs, and Anderson has a bad game. Miller's there, and the fan base is going to be all over them to make that change. You can't GM or coach because you're afraid the fan base is going to get all over you.
I get it.
I think that, and I feel like they do that all the time, and it makes me insane. Like to me, that I don't know. I
still think they made the right move because right now they were worried about the asset part of it. They have Campbell for another year.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years.
For another year.
And Campbell, 2 years at 1.6.
They're looking at that too. That's costly.
And I like Campbell, and maybe he's their starter, but I don't know that Campbell's going to be their starter. I think they got him.
They don't want him to be the starter. But the point is, if you go and trade this asset and get Miller, you don't have Campbell for the next 2 years. Now you're looking for a goalie again over the summer, and you haven't even solved that problem. And if you've lost again, then it really starts to get slippery. So I actually back the Leafs on this one.
All right. Well, let's see what the chat room says.
A little in my mouth.
We're going to bring up Tankathon and see what the chat room says here. So in our chat room, I want you to write, either write Miller or third. You'd rather have Miller or the third round pick next year.
But it's more complicated than that. It's Miller or the third because of Campbell on a 2-year deal too.
By the way, let's just throw this out there too. Me, I don't get Campbell. I get Miller in the first place. So I get Campbell in the summer because Campbell will be available. Campbell's out there.
No, he was already signed.
Right.
No, he's already signed, but you can still trade for him, Campbell. You could have traded for Campbell at another time. You don't have to trade for Campbell right now.
Yeah, but then
you always like Campbell.
But then you're giving up a third-round pick to get Miller, and then you're giving another draft pick to get Campbell. It's one or the other.
It's a slippery slope, man.
Yeah, then probably their backup goaltender next year is that Russian kid, Bilyaev,
right?
Who they don't have to give up a draft pick for. They sign him, but you don't know whether he's an NHL goaltender.
He'd be like Czechmonic.
Yeah, right. Listen. I mean, I don't get Campbell. I get Miller because I go for it. That to me, that's this. I should have added
right.
That.
By getting Miller, though, you've created 2 holes.
Right. It's a hole. You fill the hole for the last 20 games, and then you have to fill it again.
Correct.
In the summer. Whereas with Campbell, you give
up the summer. In the summer, I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs. I can't find myself a backup goalie in the summer.
Have they been able to find one up until this point?
No. That's a great point. I agree with you. They've been in that until this point, but at the same time, you can't GM based on the fact that we've sucked in the past at trying to find backup goalies. Every year, people go out there and get backup goalies that work out.
There are a number of things that people can criticize Kyle Dubas for, but that trade is not one of them. I'm sorry. It was good asset management to give up a third-round pick for Campbell, who was signed for 2 more years, and so far is 4-1-1 with the.
Right, well, when they hang the asset management banner in the arena, Mike, I'll make sure we're at that game.
Asset management it contributes to that Stanley Cup banner that teams
or at least contributes to him keeping his job.
His job should be to win the Stanley Cup, and he had a
chance.
Trying. He had a chance to give his percentages a better chance. We'll never agree.
I have the drum roll ready for the Tankathon.
All right, let's do it.
Here we go. I got it. All right. All right. We'll never agree on this one, but it's a fun one to talk about.
Carter Hutton.
Hey, there's a guy, Brian Elliott. He'll be available this summer. He'd be a hell of a great backup.
Or he goes back to the Flyers. You don't know.
Maple Leafs would love to. If Maple Leafs would get him, that would be great. Here we go. Simulating this. That was a really awful number. The New Jersey
again. Wow.
Yeah, the Jersey Devils.
That was an awful. I'm sorry. I'm pulling it off an app on YouTube.
It sounded like a television poltergeist.
That really was awful. But if you have If you have Hughes, Heishier, and Lafreniere, wow.
Yeah, here, look out. That's crazy.
Wow.
Nashville gets the second pick in this one. That's jumping up 10 spots. That's a huge.
Yeah, Nashville, that's what the Flyers did, right? When they, I don't know if Nashville did that. That's a tremendous thing to get Byfield for them. Although there's so many centers there, they finally would have to trade one.
Yeah, well, they might finally have one that can score on back-to-back nights.
I do have breaking news
in the chat room to our question, like a little bit. It was basically, I mean, I think it was pretty much Miller, third. Looks like maybe Miller won by a little bit, but I think that fans in general will always say, "Let's go for it." Why wouldn't you? Like, that's your job to be a fan, right? I mean, as a fan,
thankfully, fans don't run teams.
Well, not always. But and actually, you could argue that the Maple Leaf fans are very much running that team. The fear that they manage with, because they are. It's just like that is. They got to stop being afraid. They got to just do things. Anyway, that's my
breaking news.
Go ahead.
Not hockey related. It's prog rock related.
Oh, God.
But Steve Howe has said he and John Anderson get along great now because they don't work together all the time, which is going along with what you talked about, Ek.
Yeah.
So it does sound like there's a chance that they will record one more album and tour one more time as them. ARW is going to have their final tour this coming year, probably starting like September. But those guys may go into the studio one more time, it seems.
All right, there you go. I'm sure I'll see him at the Borgata.
No, Anderson and listen, if Anderson and Howe are together with Wakeman, it will be a bigger venue than that.
I mean, the Borgata's it's not small, but it's the biggest.
No, it'll be a bigger venue than that.
I mean, they don't fill the Mann Music Center.
In Philly, they will absolutely fill the Mann Music Center.
No, maybe.
No, you're talking about Philly. They will play 2 dates at MSG if they have the regular band together.
Or the regular band, yeah, but it just
well, that's what they're gonna have.
Well, Howe and Anderson and who else?
Howe, Anderson,
Rabin.
No, Rabin probably wouldn't be in that. I'd be surprised.
If you have Wakeman, Anderson, Howe,
and Alan White.
And Alan White, yeah.
Yeah, that I agree.
That will do it. You're only missing Chris Squire.
Yeah.
And they'll probably get someone like Tony Levin, or they'll get what's his name?
Lee Pomeroy, who was really good.
No, not Lee Pomeroy. There's the other guy, Billy Sherwood's been with him.
Yeah, there you go. All right. That's all the time we have for today, folks. As always, Mike, love you. I'm sorry to debate with you every time about this. But
there's somebody who disagreed with you on Twitter right on my timeline. Ek.
I know.
Don't worry, Ek. I always enjoy winning the debate.
Yeah, I don't think that's okay, because
we're all winners here, Mike.
Time will tell, and one of us will be proven right because we can say we were right because we knew it all along.
And I taped it this time, so this time I can say I remembered.
Thank you. All right.
I really didn't tape it.
Cameron Young for saying Miller right now. I appreciate the last minute vote. All right. Remember, without the buzz.
Cam is always on your side.
Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you